What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for watching. As you can see, I'm with my Mini Cooper today. Unfortunately, these cars have a very bad reputation when it comes to reliability. So many people ask me how I keep my car reliable, if I've had any issues, and I have had issues in the past, but I'm gonna give you 5 different tips, 5 different ways for you guys to try and keep your Mini Cooper more reliable. Now, just because you do these things doesn't mean the car's not gonna break, but hopefully it'll prolong the life of your Mini and it'll give you less headaches. So let's hop right into it. These are gonna be 5 different ways that you could keep your Mini Cooper more reliable. Alright guys, the first way to keep your Mini Cooper more reliable is the engine oil. That is one of the most important things about these cars. You need to use the correct oil. This car uses a full synthetic oil. I use 5W40 liquid moly. It's right up on the screen right now, exactly what I use right here. And it's a little more expensive than going to like AutoZone and buying like a cheaper full synthetic or whatnot, but that's what I use. It's worked great and I've had no issues. And these cars tend to burn oil. If I'm not mistaken, if you go on some forums, it even tells you that some of these cars like to burn a quart every like 1,000 miles. So frequently you want to check everything out. You want to make sure that the level is always good. I mean, you got the dipstick right there on the side. I check mine about once a week when I drive it, just to make sure that the level is okay. That's what I recommend you guys do. Maybe once a week, once every other week, just pop the dipstick out, get a napkin, check the level of the oil to make sure it's good. And another thing too, if you look on the manual, if I'm not mistaken, it'll say that, you know, you should change the oil every like 10,000 miles. I think that's kind of ridiculous. 10,000 miles is a lot. I change my oil every 3,000 to 4,000 miles max, and that's what I suggest you guys stick to. 10,000 miles, I don't think the oil is going to look pretty, and you face having issues, even though from the dealer says it. I mean, I know some techs, some places might, you know, say, oh, you know, the oil's good enough. Don't worry, you'll be fine. I just recommend you guys change it every 3,000 to 4,000 miles. It'll avoid a headache. You know, using or spending $40, $50 on an oil change could save you thousands on a rebuild on a motor. So that's the first thing, guys. The oil you use, make sure you're checking the oil level, and don't change your oil every 10,000 miles. That's just my recommendation. All right, guys, reason number 2 is right here. Coolant. You want to make sure that you're using the correct coolant when it comes to these cars, and make sure that your coolant level is right. These cars tend to run very, very hot. And again, these cars have coolant issues. As you know, if you have one of these cars suffer from, you know, bad water pumps. The thermostat housing likes to crack. Right down there, it has, you know, the thermostat housing, again, likes to crack, likes to leak right on top of the transmission, so it puddles up right down there, and you want to make sure that your level is good. Mine actually is a little low, I do have to add, but you want to make sure that you're using the correct coolant, because, again, these cars run very hot, and you don't want to risk, like, warping the head, having engine issues because you decided not to put the right coolant, or you ran low on coolant and the car ran super hot. So these cars like to have coolant issues again. So another way to make the car more reliable is make sure you're using the correct coolant in the car, and make sure that the level is always topped off. Check it, you know, well, you can check it every single time you check the oil like before. When you're checking the oil, just make sure there's enough coolant. If it needs a little bit, buy the correct one. This is the one I use right here, up on the screen right there. Use that. It's the correct one for the Mini Cooper. It might be a little pricier than going to like AutoZone and buying like a 50/50 AutoZone brand one. Just don't use the incorrect things. Use the right stuff, and the car won't give you any kind of coolant issues, and it'll prevent something from possibly the thermostat going out, or your water pump going out, the coolant pipe in the back of the engine going out. It'll save you from a lot of headaches. All right, guys, so the third way to keep the car more reliable is making sure that your ignition system is good. These cars suffer from misfiring when it comes to the spark plugs and the coils. For some reason, again, they prematurely go out. They don't last very long, and it kind of sucks, but basically the way I do it, I've been changing my spark plugs like every like 15 to 20,000 miles. So that's the way I've done it for the past couple of years. Mind you, it's not my daily, so I don't put that many miles on it. But like I said, between 15 and 20,000 miles, just to be safe, I use the NGK 1422. If I'm not mistaken, it's an Evo spark plug. They're a little bit colder, so it's really good when you have a tuned Mini with some bolt-ons on it. They still work even if you use it for a stock application. They're a little better than the stock plugs, and they don't wear out as fast. But that's another way to keep your car more reliable, is the spark plugs. Make sure that you're using good spark plugs. Make sure that you're using good ignition coils to avoid the misfires, because again, these cars like to throw check engine lights for everything, and it's a misfire, and most likely it's going to be a plug or it's going to be a coil. So I suggest, again, I would show you, but you know, the N18 engine cover, it's right under there. It's super simple to do. It'll take 10 minutes for you to change the plugs, and honestly, these plugs on Amazon, I could even link them down below. They're like $40 for 4. So again, if you're doing it once a year, once every 2 years, you should be good, and they're really good plugs. That's what I recommend. That's what I use. I've had them in the car for the past, like I said, maybe not even 10,000 miles. They've been perfect, no issues. So that's my recommendation. So the third way, check your ignition system, make sure it's good. So the fourth way to keep your car more reliable is these cars suffer from carbon buildup very badly, especially the N14 engine. The N18 not as much. Usually you could get away with it, but the carbon buildup on the intake valves is awful on these cars, especially if you're not using the correct gasoline. Obviously, always put premium gasoline. These cars call for 91. Obviously, if you're on the East Coast, put 93. If you're on the West Coast, 91. It's a given. You have to do it. Use the right gas. It'll avoid as much carbon buildup, but you need to do a walnut blast on these cars. It's just good preventative maintenance. That's a way to keep the engine running well. There's times where you might have a misfire, and you know, you change your plugs, you change your coils, you might even go as far as changing like an injector or something, and you still have an issue. You might have really bad carbon buildup, and you need to get a walnut blast done. Now, walnut blasting, it might not be the cheapest thing in the world. Depending where you go, you could spend upwards to probably like about $1,000. Could be cheaper depending if you go just to like a regular independent shop, or if you have a buddy, or even, you know, you could buy this stuff yourself and try and do it, which obviously if you have no experience, I don't recommend. But doing a walnut blast for the carbon buildup is super important, especially if you have higher miles. Now, it really depends how much you drive your car. It depends if you're putting good fuel in, how often you might have to do it. Now, if you have higher mileage, if you've never done it, I would recommend to do it. It'll probably prolong the life of your motor. And this is a picture of right here, right now, of a dirty valve on your intake. And now this is a picture of a clean one. So obviously it's a big difference, the before and after. So it's definitely recommended. I would totally do it. It'll prolong the life of your engine, and your car's gonna run like it did from factory right out the showroom floor, because when you have a lot of carbon buildup, the car runs super sluggish, and it might give you issues that you really don't know what is causing them. And then once you do the walnut blast, you realize that everything has cleared up and the car runs good again. So definitely way number 4 is to do a walnut blast. It's worth it. You should do it. So for the last way to keep your Mini Cooper reliable, I'm in the car, and it's this right here, believe it or not. So this is my Ultra Gauge, guys. I made a video about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago about it. Now, the good thing about this, it tells you everything in real time. Now, why I say it's gonna keep your car more reliable, you'll be able to see if there's any errors. Unfortunately, the Mini Cooper does not have a temperature gauge, so this right here will let me know if the car is overheating or not. So these cars do run hot, like I stated before in the video. These cars normally will run anywhere from like 220 to 230 degrees, which is normal. And if you see anything upwards of that, it means your car's running too hot. If you see, 240 to 250, you're overheating, you should definitely pull over to the side and see what's wrong. But this temp gauge right here, it's in real time. It could really save your life. It could save your car from blowing up. It could save your car from running out of coolant, whatever the case is. This will tell you. Obviously, you have your boost pressure right here. If you don't want to run a mechanical boost gauge or tap into anything, you can run the electronic one. It'll read from the ECU how much boost the car's making. So obviously, if you're over boosting or whatever, you can cause the car to blow up, the engine to have an issue, whatever. So you got that. It shows you the timing, make sure everything is positive and in the right realm of stuff. You got your intake temperatures. Mine are really high right now because it's 95 degrees outside and I'm just sitting, so obviously the car's gonna be hot. But this tells you everything in real time. You guys will know if there's something wrong with the car. I recommend a gauge 100%, like even if it's an Ultra Gauge, the scan gauge. A lot of people use the Torque Pro app. Anything you can get your hands on, connect to the car. Seeing things in real time is super important. You can catch a catastrophic issue before it occurs. If you see that the car's doing something weird, this will tell you. So, and there's many gauges to choose from. This is what I use. Super important too. Oh, well, that wasn't supposed to pop out. But it shows you the fuel rail pressure of the car to know if maybe your high pressure fuel pump is having an issue. Right now, it's good. Like I said, these cars are somewhere between like 650 and like 720 when it comes to idling, so the car's fine. But if you see any low numbers like 400 or 500, it probably means your fuel pump is going out. So this will let you know. Guys, super important. I definitely recommend getting a real-time gauge. It's gonna save your car. It could probably save you thousands of dollars in repairs. All right, guys, so that's gonna conclude the video. Thank you for watching. Now, just because you do these things does not mean that the car is not gonna break, that it's not gonna give you issues, but this is gonna be some preventative maintenance and ways to keep your car running correctly, things that are gonna keep your car running strong. So again, I've had issues with the car myself. I do maintain it very well, in my opinion. So again, just because you do this does not mean that the car is not going to give you issues. So don't take it that way. It's just ways that you can have the car have a prolonged life, less maintenance, and these cars are super expensive if you're not doing the labor yourself. If you take it to the dealer, independent shops, remember this is a BMW, so parts are expensive, labor is expensive. People don't like to work on these cars, and if they do, they like to charge a lot. So if you know how to do things yourself, that's great. You could probably get away with certain things, but if you don't and you're not mechanically inclined, I suggest you just do the preventative maintenance that anybody could do in their driveway that'll allow the car to have a long-lasting life. But anyways, guys, I appreciate you watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It lets YouTube know I'm doing a good job, and we'll see you next time. Please maintain these cars because they're really fun. They're great cars when you do what you need to. And yeah, so have a good one. We'll see you next time.